Hey guys, welcome back to Primer Podcast. I'm Jessica Flake, back with Pete Stearns. I'm back for week 2 of Simple Living.
That's right. That's right. And you are, back from sickness through this
Yes.
week. And so welcome back. We're glad you're here. And
I'm just back from Into the Living.
yeah,
basically.
into the living, simple living to actually living.
Yes.
So that's good. Yeah, we're looking at this idea of decluttering our generosity. And, last week, I think we used this image of how cluttered our homes can become and also how cluttered our hearts can become.
Yeah.
And how when we're living in this clutter, our generosity always becomes, kind of from a space of reluctance and begrudging and guilted generosity. And so, this week we're looking a little bit more at contentment, and the role that contentment with what I do have, the role that plays in my posture towards others and my posture towards living in a generous way. One of the funny things that I always experience is that I'm always losing things, right? And I'm always in the morning scrambling everywhere trying to find my phone or trying to find my wallet, and like in that moment there's like this like panicked fury that kind of stirs up in you where immediately it's like I'm stressed out by this, I'm snappy with the boys, you got to help me find this, and then I start to blame somebody where it's like, oh, somebody must have moved it from wherever I had it, right? It clearly couldn't be my fault. And Brittany oftentimes will ask me, have you checked your pockets? And I don't always appreciate that question, but I always pat my pockets, and sure enough, 90% of the time, that's where it is, right? I've been looking all over for the thing that I needed. It's led me into this space of like frustration and anger and chaos, and I've had what I needed all along. I just wasn't looking where I needed to look. And I think that's kind of the root of contentment. Have you ever had those places where it's like we're just taking for granted what we have,
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of times, like where I stress the most is finances.
Yeah.
And I know in my past, like anytime that we've struggled in finances, I immediately get anxious and stressed out. And very rarely would I go to God first. He would be the last.
Yeah.
Prayer would be the last thing I would do. I would be, in my checking account and
Yeah.
looking to see how I could figure out what it is that I could take away, or something like you mentioned last week,
Yeah.
take away something big.
Yeah.
And it's usually not those things. It's something that realizing like the contentment of what we already have, the finances that we already
Yeah.
are bringing in. We have what we need. We just need to figure out how we can rely on them better,
Yeah.
organize better, or be able to manage what we actually have better.
Yeah, I feel like a perfect example of that. We're in this culture. We talked about this last week. A culture that's always telling us we need more, right? And if we always need more, then we can never have enough. And like the perfect example of that is we did this, master bedroom renovation where we worked on the floors and the paint colors and the whole 9 yards there. And we finished it, and like we stepped back and we were so thrilled with the outcome. But then we were like, oh, well, now we need to get a new bedspread, right? Because the bedspread doesn't match the wall colors. And now we need to get new end tables. And now we need to get, and it's just this process where even though we have something remarkable and beautiful, there's this need, this compulsion to say, well, I need more. Yeah. And that's always pulling us out of spaces of contentment. And so this week we're going to look at Paul's posture on contentment, and we're going to start to ask how that might apply to our relationship with our resources, our relationship with our joy, and our relationship with our generosity. So let's open up. It's one of the most Christian famous Bible verses, but Philippians 4:12-13.
I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength.
Yeah. Where do you usually see that verse?
Um, you only see I can do all things through him.
Right. We get rid of that content part. It's like,
Right.
that one.
And it's like, on a bumper sticker or
The sole of your basketball shoe.
yeah, yeah.
Tim Tebow's eye black.
Whatever, Yep. It's usually if you want things.
Yeah.
Or you want this.
Yeah.
I want to achieve this.
Yeah, it's this inspiring thing that says the thing that I want, God wants for me, and I will go get it. And what's really interesting is you look at Paul here and how he's sharing about his contentment. And he's talking about, I'm content in all circumstances, plenty and want. And when he's talking about, being in want, he's not talking about like, we've had a tough week where we had to, cut out, dinners out from the budget or something. Right. He's talking about, I've been imprisoned, I've been beaten, I've abused. The context of who he's talking to is the church of Philippi, who are incredibly impoverished, right? We know that one of the founders of the church of Philippi is a Macedonian slave. And so like he's talking in a context where this idea that God will give me what I want is really not one that would resonate at all. Instead, he's talking about because I have the strength that comes from Jesus, I can be content in my circumstances. It's that idea of like, we're frantically searching for what we want, and God's saying, have you checked your pocket? And you remember, I have what I need. Right. Is this presence of God.
It's the being content in God and eternity and not necessarily in God's kingdom here that we're living on earth too. Is like I always like one of my biggest realizations of contentment that I had to walk through and I struggled so horribly through it is years past Joey was laid off and I did not do very well managing that time period in our marriage. And we've been married for 27 years and he was laid off probably like, I guess it was about 16, 17 years ago.
Okay.
And like I said, I just did not do.
Yeah.
Like my security was in him and what he could provide. Yeah. And so because of that, I just spiraled. And then fast forward, at COVID time, he lost his job at that point. And because of where I had placed my relationship, my contentment, it was in God. The way that I looked at Joey losing his job, it didn't. We still had everything we needed.
Yeah,
everything we needed.
Wow.
We had a home. We had our family was healthy. He was healthy. I was healthy, and nothing changed.
Yeah.
There's nothing different in the first time they got laid off and the second time he got laid off.
Except for a global pandemic.
True. Yeah. But like financially, we had no more.
Yeah, exactly.
At the second time he got laid off. But yet because I had started my relationship with Christ and realized like I had my strength came from Christ.
Yeah.
Not that he was going to provide the perfect job for Joey.
Yeah.
It was not that he was going to provide, $1,000 the next day.
Right.
It was that my contentment was in
it shifted.
God.
Yeah. It wasn't this, I'm content because I know God's going to grant my wish.
Right.
It was a contentment because I know I have what I need, which is Christ. And that ties perfectly because Paul's going to give a little bit of a blueprint to the church of Philippi to have some of this contentment. And he says in verse 5 here, so rewind a few verses before, he says, the Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, right? So you're in this situation that should produce this fear and worldly anxiety. But in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. So what do you see this saying as kind of that framework of contentment there?
To me, I feel like it's that continuing to be in prayer in every situation. Like it's not like contentment is going to immediately come.
Yeah.
You have to build in that margin, like we talked about
Yeah.
last week, to be able to um, have that relationship with Christ, and not necessarily like I didn't go from one day of just saying, okay, you know what, I'm
Yeah.
just going to be content.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah, right.
my plan. Like that comes
Easier said
from
than done, yeah.
that comes from God, and like me being content with Joey being laid off was not by my strength
Yeah.
at all. And so I think that, to me, I feel like that's the thought of,
Well, yeah, and it provides, this is what I would call, and spiritual giants and throughout the history of the church would call practicing the presence.
right.
It's in every circumstance. You start by remembering that God is near.
Mm-hmm.
Like God is present among us, no matter what, no matter where we are. We cannot get any further or closer to God than we are in this moment, right? He is here with us, omnipresent, with us in all moments. And so when we're feeling that fear, is more often than not that we have not reconnected. So prayer in this situation is not this formula to grant me my wish. It's this reconnection to the presence of God there. I kind of said how every night when I put my 2-year-old Finley to bed, the first thing he does when the lights go off is he says, "Dad," right? And all I have to say is, I'm here, buddy. And immediately he'll slump down into the crib, right? It's just this, he can't see me anymore. And that's how a lot of times we feel in these moments of financial hardship, these moments of feeling like we don't, match up to the Joneses, and these moments of feeling laid off and unwanted is it's dark. I can't see God. And so prayer is that God, God, are you there? And it's this reminder, it reconnects us there. And then it says, and then give thanks in all circumstances. And I love that Gordon Fee is a theologian, and he talks that this is thanking God for being in all things, not thanking God for all things. Yeah. It's this recognition that God is there, and it's this practicing the presence over and over, is that when we're intentional in these moments of discontent, in these moments of anxiety, to say, okay, God is here, even if I can't see him. So I'm going to pray to God, which is going to be a practice of reconnecting me to God. I'm going to recognize in thanksgiving that he is in this. And over time, as you were saying, I'm going to begin to be quicker to see that.
Right.
And to the point where I have, like Paul says, a contentment in the midst of what the rest of the world would say is crazy. And I think one of the things you can do with that is just practice these things in the mundane, and so practicing the presence is looking at the food that I do have. Food that's placed on the table for me, and tasting the flavors of that food, and thanking God for giving me the capacity for that. It's that putting away our social media and all these different things that tell us we need more, and just sitting with what we do have and being grateful for the family that's around us, and again seeing God in those spaces. I think what I want to be clear about is that this is not count your blessings and realize how much more fortunate you are than others. Right. And then feel guilty about that.
Yeah.
That's not what Paul's doing. Paul's not counting his blessings and saying, look how much more fortunate that I am. I'm being beaten and shipwrecked and marooned and imprisoned and without food and without clothing. Like that's not what Paul is saying here. Instead, he's saying, in every circumstance, if I can see God in this, if I can be present to God in this, I can be content because I have what I need. I have the glasses on the head that I forgot about, the phone in the pocket that I was scrambling all over. And it's just going to kind of start to break down that discontent with what we have, and draw us into what we really need. So.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to continue this.
Yeah, absolutely.
This series, and hopefully you guys can dig a little deeper into what contentment looks like for you. And we'll see you next week. Bye.